How's it going, everyone? I know you haven't seen me in quite a while, but I just want you to know that I'm safe if any of you actually care about that. A couple things before I get started. I know I'm sitting down, and that's kind of a no-no, but this is really the only place I can record as I don't have room to do it in my room, and around my house, there's not really a place for it because of my roommates. Also, if you see my eyes darting around in a couple different places, it's because I don't have physical cards. I have different notes scattered around a couple different screens I have set up, and I actually have a ton of white light coming off of my screens. It's kind of a funny setup, so I might end up posting a picture at the end of this video because it's kind of interesting. But so today I'm going to be talking to you about equality. Nearly 20 people every minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States. Along with that is an estimated between 21 and 60% of victims of intimate partner violence lose their jobs due to reasons stemming from the abuse. With the focus being primarily on women, we tend to see men fall by the wayside as a marginalized population of victims of domestic abuse, resulting in a feeling and a lack of masculinity and role as a man in society. Americans have been fighting for equality for a little over 150 years, starting post Civil War with African Americans gaining the right to citizenship and for the men the right to vote. Then women's suffrage in 1919, women in the workforce from the 30s to the 60s, desegregation in the late 60s, and even the gay movement, which started in the late 60s and has now come all the way until today. Now, today I'm going to be talking about equality, like I said earlier, but I was speaking, of course, about the lack of representation of men as victims of domestic abuse. I'm also talking about the stigma that follows men around in these cases of domestic violence, even when they are the victim. Now, please don't think I'm one of those crazy male rights activists. I'm quite the contrary. I'm firmly on the side of equality and fair representation, seeing as how I've volunteered, donated, and even marched for social causes dating all the way back to 2005. This comes from a place of experience and want for equal support. A first-hand count is the reason why I have such strong feelings on the matter. And while I don't necessarily think I'll be changing anyone's views very drastically, I really hope that by the end of this, you'll broaden your horizons when seeing a victim of domestic abuse, no matter the gender. From a young age, it's ingrained in us that men are the aggressors, and you see that represented in all forms of media, whether that be movies, TV, books. While the statistics do back the stereotype, the number is closer than what is usually received. In a survey conducted by the CDC named the National Intimate Partner and Sexual Violence Survey in 2010, it was noted that more than 1 in 3 women, 35.6%, and more than 1 in 4 men, 28.5%, in the United States have experienced either rape, physical violence, or stalking by an intimate partner in their lifetime. And now I am no way downplaying the frequency at which this happens to women, but the rate at which it happens to men should be surprising to some. Another issue is the lack of reporting of the abuse that goes on, where a man won't speak up for fear of, like I said earlier, feeling emasculated or seen as not fulfilling the role of a typical man. You can find examples of this written in a paper by the National Clearinghouse of Domestic Violence titled Intimate Partner Abuse Among Men. The most pertinent point being uh, this quote from it. Having been abused by a woman, the men felt that they had failed to achieve culturally defined masculine characteristics, such as independence, strength, toughness, and self reliance. As a result, the men felt emasculated and marginalized, and tended not to express their fears, ask for help, or even discuss details of their violent experiences. During the interviews, the abused men were repeatedly expressing shame and embarrassment. We need to attempt to break these feelings as a society. There's really no reason to feel shame as a victim. I feel that there's a striking similarity between domestic abuse of men and the underreporting of rape amongst women. The main thing I really want to hammer home, though, is the definite lack of government support of men who have fallen victim to domestic violence. Noted on in a paper in Psychology Today in reference to a Canadian government report, that there was 627 shelters for abused women in Canada, but only 6% of those shelters admitted men, with zero shelters solely for men. I believe that with the change on how funds are divvied out in regards to community outreach, as well as a social overhaul of how we view men, we can put a stop to these so-called social norms and treat victims as they should be treated, as victims. Now, I want to share a little story. Almost 8 years ago, I was arrested and booked for aggravated battery, not charged. My girlfriend at the time, after an argument, aggressively approached me in the middle of a party, spat in my face, began slapping, hitting, and scratching me. I grabbed her and pinned her down, holding her arms against the floor as I asked for one of my friends to call the police. She was able to reach my hands with her mouth and began biting me, and you can even still see the scars on my hands today. To prevent that, I held her neck to keep her from moving. I had left bruises on her arms and on her neck, consistent with what she had claimed to the police. The marks she left on me were deemed signs of struggle. On the night of the incident, 6 of my friends gave their accounts, and all of them lined up perfectly with what I had said. 3 of her friends, in turn, ordered. They lied to protect her, and I was taken away. It took 2 of her friends coming forward and telling the police that they had lied in order for me to even be released. I was in jail for 3 days. The blowback was huge as I had missed work and was reprimanded as such, resulting in me being fired. Socially, the news spread like wildfire. After hitting social media, I was deemed an abuser and woman beater. This stigma followed me for a couple of years, even after having all charges dropped and my side of the story being seen as the factual truth. She faced no repercussions, and I was offered no support from the authorities, or my previous job would not take me back. We need a change in attitude, with a change in social expectations of men. The thought that women can't be aggressors can't be put forth anymore. There needs to be a crazy amount of new outreach on the topic so that the general public can be more aware of the situation and learn that men can be a victim. Even if it's less than men or less than women, they can still be a victim in their own right. I hope that you can take away a new outlook from the situation, whether it be from my story or the many more that you can find online. The time is now for men and women to be given the same type of support and the same care in cases of domestic violence. Thank you, and I hope all of you guys are staying safe, eating healthy, no fast food, all that good stuff. Um, Love to hear what you think about it. All right, bye guys.